Well, good morning, all. For me, it's good to be back.
New guy.
It's new guy. It's 8 o'clock. I'd like to call the Water and Light Commission meeting to order. Would you call roll, please?
Commissioner Quirk?
Yes.
Commissioner Grindy?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapaz?
Yes.
Commissioner Riopel?
Yes. Item number 2, approved minutes from the previous meeting of April 16th.
Move. Second.
Second. Any other discussion? Or call roll, please.
Quirk?
Yes.
Grindy?
Yes.
Rapaz?
Yes.
Riopel?
Yes. Item 3, looking for motion for bills and payroll.
I'll move. Second.
Call roll, please.
Quirk?
Yes.
Grindy?
Yes.
Rapaz?
Yes.
Riopel?
Yes. Item number 4, comments from the public. Seeing and hearing none. Reports. Widseth, Todd. Good morning.
Good morning, Todd.
Just a couple items. Major stuff I have is later on in the agenda. On our 2024 miscellaneous, I need to get a hold of Northholt to discuss finishing the cleanup on that project. Now with the weather as it is, we should be able to get that done and get that contract closed out. So I'll talk to him and get that scheduled. Our 2025 equipment materials, our fiber spool came in last Wednesday. So that was, I guess, the major piece of material we were waiting on for this year's construction. So that arrived in time. Other than that, we got about 40% left, and it's pretty much slowed to a crawl as far as new stuff coming in. So hopefully that'll all stay on schedule and get here when we're supposed to get it. So. Other than that, the Business Highway 2 lighting, I've got back on that spec, so trying to get that ready to go out for bids. That'll have to be finished up here and gone out for bids here on pretty soon, so we can get that lined up and ready for this year. Still working on some mapping. Still working on some industrial park sub projects that we're looking at for that out there. And then not before too long, we'll be starting on the 2026 budget numbers for the electrical side. So that's what I have for my report, unless there's questions.
The only question I have is, I remember it was an isolated case, but when the semi tipped over out there and just missed do you think we need to put up any concrete barriers up there to protect the?
In that area right along the highway there, Mike, I don't think that anything we put up there would stop that. What did help us there was the ditch was that soft, and then the truck did roll over. So, I mean, we are set back quite a ways there, you know, right up even with the lights. So
You get a loaded semi in.
You're not going to stop.
So
okay.
we did have that discussion. Yeah, we did talk about that right away, but I don't know that there's anything that we would put up there that would stop that.
I know it's never happened in my lifetime here either.
Mine either. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anything else for Todd?
No.
Nope. Thank you. Steve.
Good morning.
Morning, Steve.
We did put in a kind of a separate PPL application specifically for the 8 lead service line water services that we know that we got out there. So if everything kind of goes through, you know, we should get funding for that and be able to complete that work next summer, which would be good. Get those kind of off the system. And then kind of like I mentioned too, you know, again, I think East Grand Forks, when we did the initial inventory, I want to say we had like 300 unknowns that we were, you know, still not sure of. And all of those are basically from the main to the curb stop. And again, a lot of it just couldn't find records. I don't think during the project the service lines were put in. They were put in more as the homes were built and stuff. So there's going to be another round of funding coming out to try to reduce the number of knowns. Again, I guess the good thing for Water and Light, all of that is paid for by, you know, the state. So there is, you know, nothing out of Water and Light's pocket for that. So that's the good news. So that's kind of where we're at. Like I said, we should be in position. I would anticipate, you know, being it is specifically lead service lines, you know, you got to score so high on the PPL to be in that fundable range. But I pretty much guarantee you know, being this is very specific just to those 8 service lines, we should receive funding to do that work next year. So that would be our goal. So that's what I have.
The city residents acceptable to that, or?
Well, I think once we get, you know, once we know we got funding for that, I think that would be our next step, would be just to talk to those residents, let them know that, you know, there would be no cost to them.
Yep.
So, because this should pretty much be 100% funded too, so, by the state, so.
And I've talked to a couple of them. They've actually reached out to us, and so we've had this discussion.
Yeah.
We probably did 3 applications, though, for funding. I know we have. You had something that you did originally, and then you had a second one, and now we've got a third one. So
yeah.
we've got all kinds of applications in for funding. So.
Yeah. We did submit initially with all of the unknowns, but the state came back pretty quick, and they know they're not going to have funding to do, you know, start replacing all the unknowns. And that's kind of why, too, they're coming out with another round of funding to try to do further investigation to try to minimize the number of unknowns. So,
How do you figure out the unknowns?
well, you know, the biggest thing when we went through the first time was, I mean, we just went back to old plans and specs and seen what we had for, you know, records and stuff. You know, we talked about now with the next go around, do we try to find out, you know, maybe from the county what year houses were built, because that way if we know that they put in the service, of course, the year that it was built, if it's after, I think it was, if it was after 1985, you know, lead wasn't available to use, so it's just going to take a little more digging, I think. We're never going to probably eliminate all of the unknowns, but the other thing they are talking about is, you know, after this, they might even come out with another round of applications where you'd actually line up a contractor to do like potholing or excavation down to try to determine what some of these are. So I don't know. I think the goal is, I think they're saying by 2033 or something like that, they want to try to have all of the lead service lines, you know, replaced in the state of Minnesota, but it's a pretty lofty goal. Going to take a lot of money, funding, so we'll see.
I think that East Grand Forks is far ahead of other communities as far as what we've done in the past. So
Yeah.
we're in pretty good shape.
Yep, we're way ahead of the game. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. City Attorney, Mr. Gulstead.
Good morning. I just wanted to start out by saying I saw Todd beat me here today, so the competition is on. And no, other than that, I am working on the water meter letter with the Keith to get that out so that we can complete the rest of the installations on the water meter. Additionally, I just want to make sure that Blue Peak is putting in an application to get a franchise to bring in cable into the city of East Grand Forks. In that application, they are indicating that they may want to be able to use any of our city poles, and I just want to make sure that if there's any concerns that it comes to me, because I'm reviewing the document right now and I'd need to change it up. And so other than that, don't have anything else, but other than to say have a good week.
And then to add to what he's talking about with Blue Peak, Reed did send me some information yesterday, and so this morning after the meeting, Tyler, Todd, and Corey and I are going to talk about the information that Reed thought that we should present. So they were specifically what Ron said, and then also to talk about fiber, if we have any fiber that they can lease. And so we'll talk about that after the meeting and get the information back to Reed, and I'm sure Reed will circle, or we can get it to you, or he'll circle it.
Yeah, I just need to know because I'm reviewing it and putting it back with any suggested changes right now.
Yeah.
This might be a question for Corey, but if they come in and people start signing up with them and that, is that going to integrate okay with our current system, or we're going to have some problems there?
Wouldn't affect us at all, actually.
Won't affect us? Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Anything else, Ron?
That's it, thank you.
Okay. Old business, Keith, anything? Okay. Item 7, request to donate water to the UGF pool.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for hearing our request this morning. As we've done in the last at least 3 years that I'm aware of, requesting for the donation of 326,500 gallons of water to fill the east side pool. It's that time of year again, feels like summer already. So just here to make that request and able to answer any questions you have.
When will we be starting that process?
So we're planning to start washing the pool at the end of this week. Planning to have the pool fully operational by May 30th. That's a Friday. June 2nd, the lifeguards will come on and start doing their training. Pool opens June 6th.
Got those little kinks fixed that we talked about?
Yep, things are moving along. So.
Good.
Brian, is there anything you have to get ready for this, Phil, or you're good?
No, we should be fine.
Okay.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, do you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, call roll.
Quirk,
Yes.
Grindy.
Yes.
Rapaz.
Yes.
Riepel.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
One other thing I would like to touch on, if that's all right.
Yeah.
With the pool donation in mind, would like to look maybe see what if you guys would have an appetite for maybe doing another donation for the outdoor rinks when it comes time for that. Don't have the numbers to present to you today, but probably estimate somewhere around that 100,000 mark for filling up Nash Park and some of the other local neighborhood rinks and the Bradshaw behind the Blue Line Arena.
That's gallons.
Not money gallons.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Total?
So.
Yeah.
I think we consider that.
Yeah, yes. If we can keep these kids outside and playing and off of video games and the internet, I'm in.
Yep.
Excellent, thank you. I'll bring that forward when the time is right. Thanks.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Didn't even flinch on 100,000. We gotta.
I figured it was gallons.
Yeah.
Got a little excited, did you, Keith?
Yeah, what the hell?
Moving on, item number 8, authorization to begin electrical system planning study and system analysis. Mr. Todd.
That one is mine. Water and Light's current 5-year study was completed in 2017. That covered the years of 2018 through 2022. So the system model we developed at that time and the customer loading and fault data that we have in there is now almost 8 years old. So it is in need of updating. So I put together a proposal letter, which you should have got a copy in your packet, that goes into a lot more detail of what we're looking at doing. But essentially, we're going to put a new study together. It's going to cover 2026 to 2030. And as part of that, we'll be putting an updated system model together using our windmill software. It's just an electronic version of the actual electrical system. We put customer loading data in there. We're probably using the peak from this last winter. So that's where your AMI system and your metering's going to come in handy, because we'll be able to pull that data right off of that and put that into the model. And then we'll use that model to project out to 2030. And that'll allow us to see where the deficiencies might be in the system. Along with that, we're going to go through the city and figure out where the new development areas might be and where some new load might show up. We'll put that into the model, and then we'll run that out, and we'll see what the state of the system looks like at that point. And that'll let us put some preliminary designs together with construction estimates, and then we'll use that to put the budgets together every year for the projects that we're going to look at. So I'm looking for authorization to begin putting that document together. I've got a not to exceed price of $74,300 for that study. if we can do that, maybe have Water and Light do some of that, work, keep the cost down, we're certainly going to do that. But that's my estimate of what it would cost to put that study together. Along with that, we're also looking at doing a new arc flash analysis. The last one we did was February of 2016, so that's almost 9 years old. That arc flash, the National Electric Safety Code requires an assessment to be done, so the crews will know what type of personal protection equipment they need to have on while they're working on certain parts of the system. Because that arc flash and fault changes depending on where they're at and what equipment is there and how close it is to the sub and that type of thing. So that's information we really need to know to keep the crews safe while they're out there working on live equipment. And it also lets us know if they need to de-energize it to work on it as well. So we're looking at that study with a not to exceed of $6,300. And that would be contingent on the 5-year study being completed first, because we need the system model in order to put the arc flash study together. So I don't know if we need 2 motions or 1 for both of those. So for both, we're looking at $80,600. And we would have it completed before the end of the year for both of those. So.
I'll make the motion.
To accept both?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second? Okay. Any further discussion?
No,
Call
sir.
roll.
Quirk.
Yes.
Grindy.
Yes.
Lapaz.
Yes.
Reapel.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll get a kickoff meeting set up with everybody involved and get that rolling.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you staying up for item 9 then?
Yep, that
Okay.
one is mine as well.
Recommendation for 2025 miscellaneous electrical distribution projects.
On April 24th, we had the bid opening for this year's construction. We got 4 bids. They were Parsons Electric, Northolt, Fusion, and AEI, which is Arvig. Our engineering estimate for the work was $45,583. Low bid was Parsons Electric. They came in at a little over $60,000. So the estimate was low by about 32%. And if you know me, I don't like to be off that much. But if you look on, you should have a copy of the bid tab in your packet. And on the 3rd page, we sort of did a breakdown of where the differences were. The biggest differences in my estimate was the fiber handling cost, which was the fiber-12 on the unit designation. I was about almost 5,000 low on that particular item. The other one was the guard post work, and then the trenching and the boring were quite a bit higher than what I was estimating as well. Not sure what drove that, but
We done any work with Parsons before in town?
last time we worked with them was in 2022. They had the contract for that year's construction,
Yes.
and that went very well. They like to come in and get things done and then move out. So really didn't have any issues with them that I'm aware of.
And then for your information, I mean, typically, the rule of thumb that I've used, and I think they're not too far off, 25% over is kind of a number that's always stuck in my head. But with the conditions the way they are right now, and if we did have to go out and rebid it, we'd end up spending more anyway. And so
Yeah.
I have no issue with taking the bid, because
Just
it's a
everything
lower.
is so volatile in the markets.
Yeah, and it's a lower dollar amount, and so, and that even goes back to the other thing that you approved with his study. This is a lighter year, and so it kind of balances out in our funding process. So it's a good time to do this.
I don't feel bad about it because I see this every day.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to get any different
No.
numbers if we rebid, and we might actually even lose some bids.
I mean, I'm going to make the motion to go with it, with the low bid, but I don't want you beating yourself up over it, is where I'm going with it.
Well, yeah.
No, I know,
It's a
but-
personal thing. I don't like to be that.
Well, that's our personalities, and
No,
nothing makes sense anymore.
no, it's getting harder every year.
Yes, it is.
Trying to figure out what the number actually might be. So.
Yeah. So I do make the motion to accept the Parsons low bid.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion?
No, sir, for
Call
me.
roll?
Quirk.
Yes.
Grindy.
Yes.
Rapaz.
Yes.
Priapel.
Yes.
All right,
Thanks,
thank you.
Todd.
We'll get the pre-con set up and get those contracts out. Get
Yep.
started.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 10, water treatment plant operator resignation.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
So, water treatment plant operator Seth Bond presented his letter of resignation on April 25th of this year. Seth's last day will be this Friday, May 9th. I'd be asking the Water and Light Commission to accept Seth Bond's resignation notice and grant permission to begin the hiring process with civil service.
I'll move on that, and also, like to thank Seth for the service that he gave us for those years, and wish him the best of luck in his new endeavor.
I'll second that motion, and I'll second Randy's comments.
Any other discussion? The only thing I have to add is how much overtime is this going to put on us being down?
It shouldn't create any overtime. We are just going to adjust our current schedules to make up for that. The other fortunate thing is that we do have an intern plan coming in at the end of the month, of course, which will help out around there as well. But there should not be any planned or foreseen overtime at this time.
All right, good.
Excellent.
Call roll, please.
Quirk.
Yes.
Grindy.
Yes.
Rapaz.
Yes.
Priapel.
Yes.
You had very good luck filling the last position that opened up. When do you plan to start the process of advertising moving forward?
So with your permission, we'll start the internal process today. And so then 10 days for the internal. And then once we go through that process, if we don't find anybody, then it will go out externally I'd like to do it for 3 weeks so we get good candidates. So it's a process. It could take a couple months, up to a couple months, or it could be quicker.
Yeah, because by the time you roll that out, that'll be Memorial.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I know we're in a time crunch here, but you've got some of these tech schools that they're going to be graduating here shortly. Are we going to be able to get our name out there before they graduate, or are they all set up already? So
Yeah, we've got a couple thoughts in mind that Brian and I have been discussing, and I think we've got a good direction. I'll let Brian comment on the schools.
We have to satisfy the requirement of the internal process. Whether that's fortunate or unfortunate. That has to do with, of course, the union contract. So we have to satisfy that, before we can reach out to the tech schools.
Ron, is there anything we can do? Can we do them both at the same time? Is there anything that says we can't?
The union contract says you got to do internal.
Yeah, I'd have to review that, Mike, before I can answer that question.
You know where I'm getting at.
Typically,
I
it
know.
has to go internally for.
It says it right in the contract, and
Yeah.
I did call up the union rep to see what we could do there, and that was the word again. So we're okay with that. We'll manage. We've got a couple thoughts in mind, maybe, but we'll play it out and do it as quick as we can.
Okay.
Good luck with it.
Yeah, thanks.
You're pretty optimistic there, Brian.
All right, no other questions. Well, so do we need to
Make the motion.
authorize for,
Yeah.
okay,
I'll make the motion.
Authorize civil service to proceed with the.
Correct. And then if that doesn't, then move to the next step of for the 3 weeks.
okay, that's the motion. We have a second?
I second.
Yeah. Call roll.
Burke.
Yes.
Grindy.
Yes.
Rapaz.
Yes.
Reapel.
Yes,
And I'll work on my poker face there, Joe.
please do.
Ron, he's not coming to court with us.
Item number 12, Sugar Hill Substation Roofing Project bids.
I think we missed 11.
Oh, I missed 11? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Plant reservoir repairs. Oh, yeah, that's a biggie. Sorry.
Yep, no problem. So the 1 million gallon reservoir located at the water treatment plant was constructed in 1951. Following an inspection performed by KLM Engineering, some repairs have been recommended. Before the repairs can begin, plans and specifications of those repairs need to be provided to the Minnesota Department of Health. So I contacted Steve Emery of Widseth Engineering to assist with this process. I did attach the engineering cost proposal that should have been included in your packet. Is there any questions about that before I move on?
Nope. I have none.
Okay. So having said that, my recommendation would be to approve Widseth Engineering to prepare the plans and specifications for the Minnesota Department of Health and authorize permission to perform the repairs on the plant reservoir.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Second. Got any further discussion?
No, sir.
Call roll.
Quirk.
Yes.
Grindy.
Yes.
Rapaz.
Yes.
Reapel.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Brian.
Now we go to item number 12, Sugar Hill Substation Roofing Project bids.
Morning. I did reach out to 5 different contractors on the roofing project. Only 2 of them got back to me. And my recommendation is to go with ABC Seamless. They're the ones who did the other ones for us, or Don's ABC. So my recommendation is to approve to have ABC do the project.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay. Any further discussion? Need a second?
I'll second.
Call roll.
Quirk.
Yes.
Grindy.
Yes.
Rapaz.
Yes.
Reapel.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, might as well step there. Department heads. Todd.
I got a few things going on here. Spring has sprung and we're busy. We did get the 6-inch water meter installed at the campground, and they did turn that on Monday. So they're working on that, getting disinfecting, and then Brian will get the water tests there, so they're able to use that water down there. Crews were out. We did do some switching to meet the WAPA allotment for May. Crystal had some trouble out there with a few internal issues, so their load's been down. I haven't heard for sure if they're still going to be ramping their production down on the 16th of May. That was the targeted date. Between the 16th and the 19th, right now they've been hauling some out. They do have one dryer going after the incident that they did have out there, so I will be in contact with them to see how much longer they're going to be out, and that will let us know how much more load we have to move around. I did report we did have a street light that went over in the wind, and the base was bent out there. That was out on 15th, and crews were able to unscrew that anchor after the frost got out of there, put a new one in, and did reinstall the pole. And also we've been fixing some street light wires that went bad over the winter. I'm getting some of that done. We do have a few left. I've got one fiber to work on that's broke out on the wet side of the dike. out along Business Highway 2. So hopefully we'll be able to get to that one and figure out where that went bad. The water meters are being installed as appointments are coming in. We were gaining on that number, but then we had quite a few fail that were census meters that have been in between 5 and 10 years, so we're making appointments on those and catching up on that. As Keith mentioned and Ron, we have a few that we're having, we've made phone calls. Tyler's been putting letters out to them. We haven't had any contacts. That's why we want to move along and get that done so we can wrap that project up or keep working on it. It is, some people, just like we had mentioned before, they don't want to answer the phone, they don't want to open the door. So we get something, language in there, so we'll do what we can. Folsom Farms called yesterday along with the project that we have for 2025. They did nail down their location where their service is going to go, and that's where we had expected to put it. So our transformer will be able to sit right along the easement there on 8th. So that one will move along whenever the contractors get going. We'll probably start on that one right away. And I was out Zavril asphalt plant. They are moving along out there. Hopefully they will have that up and operational midsummer, the way it sounds, or maybe a little sooner. So we were out there yesterday. We're all set up. We just have to wait for those guys to get their work done and get their inspection from the inspector and move along there. When we had one other issue when we were replacing some street light wires underneath the driveway. Our hole hog that we used to bore underneath the driveways, we haven't used it for a little while, and it started out and it quit. So we got that sent in for repair. Hopefully it won't be too bad. Put some seals in it and get that operational again. Other than that, I've been meeting with Nancy a little bit on the placement of fence and decks, verifying they're not in the easement, and then started mowing, and we'll be spraying on the substations and the DSC grounds. So that's about it. Business as usual. Okay, any other questions?
Questions for Todd? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Brian.
The surface water treatment workshop was held 2 weeks ago in Fargo. 2 operators and I were able to attend. A variety of relevant topics were discussed, such as biological filtration, fluoride benefits in drinking water, and many others. Ray Riccozzi and Nick McNellis have been presenting the last 2 days at the Heritage Village to local elementary students. That is part of the annual water festival that's taking place over there. Last week I submitted the 2025 lead and copper site sampling plan to the Minnesota Department of Health. And lastly, I'd just like to mention that we collected bacteria samples at the swimming pool and the DNR campground, as Todd mentioned earlier, this week, and so we're just awaiting those results. So that's all I have, unless somebody has any questions.
What's our river level? Is it up or down? Or?
It's actually up. This is the highest now that it's been since, those rains late last week. I think they said we got something like 1.9 inches here in East Grand Forks, and to the northeast they got pretty good rain. So this is the most runoff we've seen.
You inspect the intakes again this year or not?
We will do a cleaning of them this fall. I'm trying to think. I think our schedule, the next time we're inspecting those would be, I think it's in the winter of 25 or 26. Okay. It escapes me right now, but we do it about every 5 years.
Oh, okay. All right. Haven't heard any more about invasive species down there?
We haven't found any signs of that in our intakes, thankfully, yet. Unfortunately, I think it is only a matter of time. before it shows up, because they say they have found it, in Upper Red Lake. Now, at the surface water treatment school that we were at, there was a session on that, and how to deal with them, once they are present. There is a few chemicals that are available, that a person can feed to try and basically what you try and do is you just try and eliminate them in your system. There's not too much that you can do, out in the river, for instance, except, periodic cleaning, so when it's inspected, if there, there could be some scraping or eliminating that's done there when that takes place.
That's all I have. Any other questions for Brian?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Corey?
Business as usual, so nothing else with questions.
Okay. Tyler, anything for the order?
Nothing unless there's any questions.
No. Keith, you're up.
So I got a couple items. The first is the Lawwell project, kind of give you an update on that. Last Friday, I met with Grand Forks administration staff and the mayor, and we're trying to pin down the CFS coming from the lower Red Lake Dam. If you recall, I maybe brought up that the Corps of Engineers was doing a water control plan, and we're trying to determine if we are going to see that 100 CFS that they said back when we had the drought. And so that's very important data to get so that we know if we'll be part of the project or not. And it's also important to Grand Forks so they know what their allocation will be. And so at the meeting on Friday, I had some discussion with them, and they asked if I would reach out to the Corps of Engineers and the Minnesota DNR and possibly somebody on the North Dakota side. Since we're the Minnesota side, they thought it was appropriate that I reach out. And so I did reach out, and the two of them got back to me. So we we had a meeting yesterday, and we had discussion about the meeting, the kind of the agenda, and where we would meet, et cetera, et cetera. And so we've got 2 dates picked out, and it sounds like maybe we'll go to the Corps office to have the discussion. The Corps said they'd have 7 or 8 individuals, and so anytime we get that type of an audience, I want to be there in person because our main thing is what is the CFS going to be in that control manual. And so that's very important to know, because if it's 100 CFS, and again, I've said this before, if we've got a 2.1 CFS allocation, I think between us, we've got, Grand Forks and us, we've got 28.1. And so if there's 100 CFS coming down from the lower Red Lake, that definitely, in my mind, would probably be enough water for East Grand Forks. And I know Brian and I, we've had many conversations regarding that. So that's why I'm trying to take a lead on that so that we can get that answer and make the right decision. So that's the update on that. Any questions on that one? Okay, and then the RECs, the WAPA RECs, I know I've talked about that as well in the past. A couple weeks ago, I asked Avant or MMPA if they would bank the credits for us, which they agreed to do that, because WAPA put that on hold as well. They were going to allow us to sell our credits, which before we couldn't. And so we put 72,138 credits. We put it in the bank, and we'll wait until they get that process done, because once they approve that we can sell them, I mean, there's a little, it could be $3, $4, $5 a credit, and so that could be some real funding, and so we'll just let that sit in the bank and see what happens. In the past, we've donated them to Crystal, but that was when we weren't able to sell them. So that's what's going on there. And then we talked a little bit about the hiring. So the distribution operator posting deadline, that's the Tommy replacement. The deadline for that is 5/11/25. And then we'll set up interviews, and the chair is the one that will ask if you're available to be in on the interviews for that. And then we just approved the internal posting for the water operator, and the internal posting, I think 5/16, that will be the deadline on that, and we'll keep you posted on how those things are going. And so that's what I have for you.
Excellent.
Yeah. Any questions for Keith?
No, sir.
I just kind of got a hypothetical. So hypothetically, we get an industry that needs more water. The CFS that we're promised isn't good enough. And do we have another backup plan?
Well, the project's going to go through either way. And so.
Well, I get that, but if we don't allocate it now, what's the backup plan?
Well, the backup plan is, well, we feel we have plenty of, we'd have plenty of a capacity at that point. I guess what you got to balance out is so if we go with it, we're looking at 160,000 plus or minus a year for 40 years.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's,
I think I understand your question, and so I think what he's asking is that if we're not promised enough water, you know, through Red Lake, Lower Red Lake Dam,
Then we would be
part of the Red River Valley Water Supply Project. You know, we'd be more likely than to go with them to guarantee us the water that we would need, you know, in the drought situation.
If that's what you said. So is that what you're getting at?
yeah, I'm just curious if it's not going to be enough for us, because a lot of times you're promised things that you just don't get.
Yep.
No, right. So
You know.
so the water control
comment.
water control plan,
Yeah.
that has to be completed, and then there'll be a minimum release for the CFS in that plan. And if that is, they give us indication that that could be 100 or 120 CFS. If it is that, we here probably 25 CSF right now is what we need. And so if half of it comes down from the Lower Red Lake and we have 50 plus, we feel that that's plenty. So
Just,
I misunderstood what you were
If
asking.
you have like Thief River and Crookston, I mean, if they release 100
No.
CFS, would
Yeah.
Crookston and Thief River take part of that?
So Crookston no longer takes from the Red Lake River, but Thief River Falls does.
Yeah.
And so I've taken that into consideration, Thief River Falls, East Grand Forks. And then if Grand Forks was to stay on the Red Lake in that case too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that would be sufficient by determination.
Yeah, and so the issue with us is the timing. So they've said they put that plan on hold, the Lower Red Lake plan. They're waiting on a drought study from the Red Lake DNR on the Red Lake Basin. But it's pretty crucial that we have that information before, because if we don't have that CFS and they drop it to 15 or 40, like one of the core individuals had told me before the 2022 that was the number, well then we wouldn't have enough. And so then maybe we'd have to have that 2.1 CFS allocation or maybe something different, but we would need some in our view. But ultimately it all has to come to you for approval, and those are the steps we're taking. And so now it's kind of crunch time, because everybody's talking on the LAWA board about signing on the final documents. Well, in order to do that, you need to know the specifics on how they can guarantee that water coming down the Red River. And so
Right.
that's why all of this has got to come to, we have to understand all that before we consider signing.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So it's important, and it's a crucial time, and so that's why I offered to be engaged, and then we're going to have that meeting and see if we can't move things along and get some assurances. Anything else on that one?
No, sir.
Okay. Thanks.
anything from the commissioners?
Nothing here, sir.
No. Looking for a motion for adjournment.
I'll make the motion.
I'll move. Second, call roll.
Quirk.
Yes.
Grindy.
Yes.
Repaz.
Yes.
Riepel.
Yes.